The next time a storm warning comes through on your phone, you'll probably move inside. You'll check the radar, watch the cell tracking across the screen, see if it's heading your way or pushing south. And if it does hit, if 6 minutes of serious hail takes something you spent months building, here's the question you won't ask until after. Why would you go back and do it again? That's the question I've been sitting with. I live in Kansas. I had a garden. By 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in June, the garden was gone. The garden wasn't serious. That's important to say. No raised beds, no drip system, just a strip of ground along the back fence I'd been working since April. Tomatoes, peppers, a climbing bean that had taken 2 failed seasons before it decided to cooperate, some basil near the back door that had gotten unexpectedly ambitious. I didn't start it because I wanted to grow food. Not really. I started it because I wanted something that was mine and small and growing. Something that asked me to show up every morning and check on it. And I did, every morning. Before the heat came, before anything else. You know that habit. You go outside, nothing's changed. You go back in feeling slightly better anyway. The tomatoes were close by the time the storm came. That color between green and yellow that means a few more days. I'd been watching that color shift day by day for over a week. Every day I'd go out and think, tomorrow, maybe the day after. The bean had finally reached the top of the wire. It felt like something. The basil had filled out beyond what I expected. That strip of ground was the first thing I thought about when I woke up that summer. It was mine and it was growing, and those 2 things, it turned out, were enough. The day started flat. Gray sky, warm, the kind of June morning that doesn't promise anything. I checked the radar before coffee, a cell forming to the southwest. The track looked like it would push south of us, miss by 20 miles. I put the phone down. I was wrong about the track. These cells wobble. The track said south. It shifted north. That few miles was enough. The rain came first, normal rain. Then something shifted in it, heavier. Wrong. I went to the window, pea-sized at first. I thought, this is fine. Then it doubled, then doubled again. The sound on the roof went from a tap to something I would have had to raise my voice over. The tree in the front yard lost its leaves in real time, not falling, stripped. The driveway went white. There was nothing to do. That's the thing nobody tells you. Your hands want to do something. You stand at the window and watch, and you let it happen. 6 minutes, I timed it. Then it stopped, completely. The way hail stops, like someone cut a wire. The silence after was very loud. I waited before going out. Not being careful, just not ready. The garden looked like something had been angry at it. I stopped at the edge and just looked. The tomato plants bent sideways, unable to straighten. The fruit on the ground, split open, bruised through, already going dark where they'd cracked. The climbing bean stripped of every leaf, just bare stems, still holding the shape they'd been in that morning, still clinging to the wire. The basil flat against the soil. I stood in the middle of it, the smell of broken stems. Everything I'd been tending, just gone. I picked up 1 tomato from the ground. It had a crack straight across the top, deep enough to ruin it. But it was still warm from the morning sun, still the right color. 2 or 3 days away from ready. I put it in my pocket and went inside. I didn't know what else to do with it. I started reading, trying to make sense of what had happened. Hail across the Central Plains isn't what it used to be. The conditions that produce it, warm, unstable air, cold temperatures high in the atmosphere, strong updrafts, are showing up more often as the lower atmosphere warms. The season is getting longer at both ends. On the spring side, storms that used to wait until May are showing up in March. On the fall side, months that used to feel safe, September, October, don't anymore. What used to be a defined window across Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, is blurring into something without clean edges. Farmers know this. Insurance companies know this. I hadn't known any of it, not until it showed up in my backyard. The hardest part wasn't the storm itself. It was the next morning. I woke up and went outside by habit. I reached for something to check on. There was nothing to check on. There was just ground, a bare strip, a fence, an empty pot. I stood there longer than made sense. I couldn't stop going back over it. What if I'd covered them before the storm came? I'd seen the cell on radar that morning. I'd seen it forming. I just decided it would miss. What if I'd brought the tomatoes inside when the rain started? I went out to the strip and touched the bare stem of the bean. Still on the wire, still standing. I touched the soil where the basil had been. I just hadn't known I needed to do any of those things. I know now. A few weeks later, I was at a farmer's market. I was there for tomatoes. That's the whole reason. The ones I would have had by now were rotting in the ground. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was still a little hollow. But I heard two people talking at the stand behind me, a man and a woman, both older, going through what they'd lost in the hailstorm earlier that summer. Not complaining, just working through it practically. What they'd planted, what got taken, then what they'd changed. Different timing on the planting, better variety for this part of the country. A hail net cover one of them had ordered online. The woman said, "It's not that you think it won't happen again. It's that you figure out what you can do differently." I didn't turn around, but I kept hearing that line. It's not that you think it won't happen again. I drove home, put the tomatoes on the counter, stood in the kitchen for a while, kept thinking about what she'd said. There's a version of this question playing out everywhere right now. Homeowners in flood zones deciding whether to rebuild after the third time. Farmers across the hail belt deciding whether to replant a field that got wiped in May. Families in wildfire corridors asking whether to go back to land they've worked for generations. The math is the same everywhere. You know what happened. You know the odds aren't improving. Your insurance is getting more expensive or harder to find, or it isn't going to cover what it covered before. And you're still standing there asking whether you go back. There's something about the places we tend. Every morning you go out, you check, you adjust, you do it again the next day, and the next, season after season, in the heat and the cold, in the weeks when nothing seems to change. After long enough, the place stops being separate from you. What you've planted, what you've watched grow, what you've carried inside in your pocket. It becomes part of how you understand yourself. So losing it isn't just material loss. It's something closer to losing a piece of who you are. The rational answer is sometimes no. Don't go back, move. Find somewhere the odds are better. That's a real answer. Some people make it, and they're right to. But something else gets there first. For me, it was a morning in October. First real hint of fall in the air. I walked out to the empty strip of ground and noticed something I hadn't noticed in all the months since the storm. The soil looked fine. The fence looked fine. Nothing was wrong with the ground itself. The hail had hit what was growing in it. The ground had just waited. I didn't make a decision that morning. I just noticed. By spring, I was outside with seeds in my hand. I bought a hail net over the winter. It's a mesh cover you pull over the beds when the radar goes magenta, that dark red color that means ice is coming, not rain. It took me longer than it should have to buy it. Not the cost, the admission. That this wasn't a one-off, that I was now gardening in a time when this is part of what gardening here means. I needed to prepare for it like a fact and not an exception. I bought it. That part was already done the moment I started reading. The net stays near the back door now. When the radar goes magenta, I go out and cover the beds before the storm gets here. I've done it twice this season already. The tomatoes are doing well, so far. That's the answer, as far as I've found one. Not that the math suddenly makes sense, not optimism, not denial. The hail took what was growing in the ground. It didn't take the ground, and every spring that ground is still there. So you go out, you plant, you learn the radar better than you knew it before. You keep the net near the door, and when the magenta comes, and it will come, you go out before the storm gets here and you cover what you built. The next time a storm warning comes through on your phone, you'll probably move inside. That's the right call. But if it takes something from you anyway, I think you already know what you'll do come spring.